There is a sound every parent knows. The sound of a front door opening at the wrong hour. The sound that means someone is standing on your porch with words that will divide your life into before and after. Christine Wansley heard that sound 6 weeks ago. And since then, the people who are supposed to give her an answer, the coroner, the sheriff, the state of Mississippi, have handed her a sealed document, a 2-word finding, and silence. Undetermined. That's what they gave a mother. Not a cause, not a manner, not a name. A word that means we looked, and we will not tell you what we saw. Now, you need to understand something before we go any further. This is not a video about picking a side. This is not a video about telling you who to blame. I don't know what happened on Horn Island. Nobody in a comment section knows. Nobody in a YouTube thumbnail knows. And anyone who tells you they do is selling you something. But I know what it is to watch an institution close a door in your face and call it procedure. I know what it is to be told trust the process while the process hands you nothing. And I know that an 18-year-old boy who cooked salmon for his family the night before he died deserves better than the word undetermined. His name was Nolan Wells. He played wide receiver at Southwest Mississippi Community College. He was 3 weeks from turning 19. He didn't drive, so his friends picked him up every day until it stopped being a favor and became a rhythm, a habit, a small act of love, repeated so often nobody noticed it anymore. On the 4th of July, he got on a boat with his friends and rowed 10 miles out to a sandbar to celebrate a holiday. The most ordinary thing an 18-year-old on the Mississippi coast can do. He never came home. And 6 weeks later, in the United States of America, a country that will look you in the eye and tell you it has the finest forensic science and the strongest justice system on this earth. His parents still do not know how their son died. Stay with me. Because what I'm about to walk you through is not the interview everyone else is reacting to. It's what the interview didn't say. And that silence is louder than anything those 3 young men spoke for 90 minutes. You're watching the Black Docket. We track active cases, we follow the evidence, and we do not look away when the narrative shifts. If you're new here, subscribe and tell us where you're watching from. Before we break down the silence, you need to hear the noise. Here are the most critical moments of that 90-minute Officer Tatum interview. In their own words, watch closely.
You know, obviously, before this happened, I would assume you're living a regular life, young guys being in college, having a typical experience, then you lose your friend.
I think ever since it happened, my life just hit like a hole. Like even going out, we're always paranoid somebody's gonna see us, get spotted, try to beat us up potentially, or even worse.
You just met these young men more recently. And are you confident that these young men had nothing to do with it? We have Ed Pausick, Warren, Jax, and then we have Morgan here. And so I talked to Warren last time I was here. We had a really deep conversation, and I'm glad that we were able to get other perspectives now that we have Ed here. Ed is a defamation attorney. And I want to start with you, Ed. Why did you choose to work with the boys? What is your plans? What do you expect to get out of working with them? What's your expectations when it comes to defamation?
Well, I think an injustice in one place is an injustice everywhere. I hate lying. I care about the truth, but most of all, it's the actual people who are involved here. So first of all, I just want to say Tyler Cox really welcomed me here. My co-counsel, he's an incredible human being and he's an incredible attorney. And then after that, I had an opportunity to meet these incredible young men. And I just got to say, these guys are unbelievable. Warren, Jackson, Morgan, they're just beautiful people. They're really decent human beings. They're just great people. And that's why I'm here, because I want to help great people. And this is a very sad situation, but it's also a very human situation, and it's a tragedy. So
you guys have, obviously before this happened, I would assume you're living a regular life, young guys being in college, having a typical experience, then you lose your friend, Nolan. And after that, what has life been like for you guys?
I think ever since it happened, my life just like hit like a hole, like it just stopped. And I mean, we just gotta live day by day from now on. I could say definitely a whole flip upside down for our lives. It's like even going out, you know, we're always paranoid somebody's gonna see us, get spotted, try to beat us up potentially, or even worse. We're really just trying to stay low key and not go out as much or anything like that. Yeah.
It's been hard because my friends and I are people. I mean, we like to be out and hang out outside of our friend group, you know, and not being able to like go certain places or, you know, walk around in public because our head's always on a swivel. It's really affected all of us. I mean, especially in like my family's standpoint, my safety comes first. My friends and family safety come first too, and it's been really hard because I'm worried about like my family as well with me, and it's hard. But you know, we're just going day by day and just trying to get through every day. You know.
Can you give me some examples of what has happened? Have you guys had things happen online, threats online? Have you guys have any examples of people accosting you or anything like that?
Oh yeah, we have had countless death threats online, been spotted. I'll let you elaborate more on that, being spotted.
I mean, people have obviously just pointed us out. I mean, as a group and even on a one-on-one setting, I think it's really just like awkward because I don't want to talk about this, and I know my friends don't want to talk about this any more than we need to. You know, we're still mourning one of our best friends' death, and it's hard to speak about it when, you know, like sometimes we just need some alone time, or sometimes we just need to, you know, lay back and not be around all this. And I mean, I've been called out in public, and I haven't been in public that much. I know my friends have had encounters in public. The threats have been insane from, you know, my stepmom and my dad, my mom, just everyone included, like even my brothers and my sisters. And it's just hard. I mean, it's unbelievable where like this has been taken to and the level where this is at.
When you say you've been called out in public, can you give me an example of like, what do you mean? People are threatening you with weapons? People are, you know, not allowing you, denying you service? Because I heard that Trayston, he went to a corner store and they told him his money is not good there. They wouldn't even let him buy Gatorade.
Yeah.
Are you experiencing things like that or something totally different?
Right. I wouldn't say like that. I think I haven't been denied, you know, anything, but like Trayston, it's hard to hear from a good friend of mine that he's getting denied a Gatorade and a Red Bull before work and having to, like, he calls me, he's like, dude, you won't believe what just happened. He got called out at Walmart. Someone called him out at Walmart and was like asking him all these questions and trying to press him about it. And it's crazy to me. Like, you know, we live in a very tight knit community, and for people to, you know, push back and say these things when they know what Ocean Springs is like, it's really hard. And I mean, I haven't had many personal encounters, but I know being around the guys and stuff like that, they have, so.
And Ed, as an attorney that's representing these boys, I mean, what does that make you feel like? You know, do you feel like you got a good case here, or, you know, what's your perspective in that? Because, you know, people are online and obviously they know who you are. Obviously they know you represented Donald Trump in some pretty high profile cases. And so now that you've joined, or at least now you work for the young men here, you hear them say things like they've been accosted, they've been, you know, threatened online. Does that make your case a greater case, or how do you work within what's happening to these young men?
Well, unfortunately, I wish there was no case. I wish this hadn't happened. But unfortunately, because these things did happen, there is a case, and now there's multiple cases. And I'm gonna tell you something. If you're out there and you lied about these guys, you lied about my guys, you lied about Tyler's guys here, if you lied about Morgan, if you lied about Jax, if you lied about Warren, we're gonna get you. And you're gonna be hauled into court, you're gonna be held accountable, and it's gonna be very painful. And what I would say to the people who have done that is, now's your chance. If you want to apologize and retract before you find yourself in court, you should probably do that now. Because if you don't do that, once you're in court, now you just can't leave. You won't be able to get out of it. And we're not going to name names because there's some other folks who are doing that, and we want to be better than that. And I want to emphasize this, right? We're not here to guess. We're not here to speculate. We're only going to deal in facts, right? And here's the most important thing, right? We don't know how Nolan Wells died. No one here is saying we know. But what we do know is Morgan, Jax, and Warren had nothing whatsoever to do with Nolan Wells' death. And that's what's important. And unfortunately, because there are people who want to divide a town and come in from the outside and tell people what to think and pit neighbor against neighbor, it compounds the tragedy. It magnifies the tragedy. And I just want to say this. Here's why it's an even bigger tragedy. Because my friends here, Morgan, Jax, and Warren, these guys are not just the finest that Ocean Springs has to offer, the finest that Mississippi has to offer. These are the finest young men that America has to offer. These are, really great people. And Tyler actually taught me good Ocean Springs people. That was one of the first things I heard when I got here. So I'll just say that. They're good Ocean Springs people.
Sorry to interrupt. I know you're enjoying this incredible interview. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button and also join our membership program. Let's get back to the interview. And how confident are you? Because you just met these young men more recently. And are you confident that these young men had nothing to do with it?
Confidence not a strong enough word. In fact, beyond a reasonable doubt is not strong enough. There's a 0% chance that they did anything wrong. So this is not 90%, it's not 99%, it's not 99.9999. There's no decimals, there's no anything. It's 100%, 100.000%, nothing. They did nothing wrong, and that's the problem for our opponents here, who have ruined their lives, dragged them through the mud, and attack them. You don't get to lie. We have a First Amendment. We love our First Amendment, but you don't get to lie and hurt people. You want to lie and it doesn't hurt people? Fine. You lie and you hurt people, that's why we have defamation. And that's what this is about. So I just want to emphasize this in the strongest possible terms. Zero wrongdoing. Completely innocent, totally innocent, and categorically innocent.
And you guys have had experiences with either people threatening you online. I know that, Warren, we talked about this before, and we talked a little, or at least spoke a little bit about when you go out, you guys are getting accosted by people. Can you give us an example of, or at least tell the audience an example of an incident where you guys may have been accosted, or what does that look like when you go out? People threaten you with weapons, or people trying to physically harm you, or people having to be restrained? What kind of engagement is happening when you guys go out?
We went to a restaurant, a couple of buddies of mine, and when we were, I wouldn't say threatening with weapons or anything, but I felt, and I know my friends felt, threat for our lives. I mean, I don't think there was like a fear factor, but at the same time, like it's awkward in public, like I stated, like when we have to talk about these things. But we went to a restaurant and someone came up to me and was like, "Is this you?" And I was kind of like shaken up about it. Well, at first she asked like my name and like all these questions, and I was like, okay, whatever, she's just coming up to talk. Well, then she came up to me again and showed me our first interview and was like, "Are you sure this isn't you?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, that's me, like obviously." And she kind of just, I looked at my buddy and I was like, "Yeah, we're leaving, like close everything out, like we're going." And I left, and there was an altercation after I left with some of my buddies that weren't involved in this at all. And they told my friends that they were gonna kill them and they wanted to fight and all this like crazy stuff. I mean, I wasn't there, but my friends told me this, that what the people were saying to them was like totally just crazy. Like, I mean, there was people like that were, you know, outside of this telling us like, hey, you need to leave before something happens because I know what could go down right now. And like, I know that these people are crazy. So, I mean, we all felt, we were kind of shaken up about that. It was weird because it was our first encounter as a group. And I think it's also like just crazy that people will like look at you in the eye and tell you they'll kill you because they believe you killed your best friend and you have nothing to do with it.
And Morgan and Jax, were you guys there?
Yes, we were there.
I was there.
I didn't hear the part where they said they were going to kill him and stuff, but I did hear whenever she came up to him originally, she was like, hey, you have like TikTok or anything like that? Your face looks really familiar. And he was like, no, I don't have TikTok or anything like that. And she was like, oh, okay. And then walked off and then came back with, like you said, the first interview on her phone and showing him. She's like, so this isn't you. Either you have a doppelganger or this is you. And he was like, well, yeah, that's me. And then we got the check and we bounced and we were waiting outside for everybody else to get out of there. And while we're waiting outside is whenever some of our other buddies that aren't even on social media that we were just there with was getting told that other people were going to kill them and all that kind of stuff.
So how did that make you guys feel did you think they were serious? Did you think it was just people trying to make a name for themselves by confronting you in front of others? Like, what was your take on that, Morgan?
I think it was just like, I was in the general area of where one of our buddies was, where this altercation happened. And I actually got into a conversation with a fellow next to me that wasn't even involved. And he told me straight up, he was like, if I was y'all right now, I would leave before y'all get hurt. Y'all need to leave right now. I'm just watching out for y'all and making sure y'all are safe. And I mean, I wouldn't say that those people would have physically done something in that moment, but I think they were playing like almost like a mental game, like just to get into your head and just almost like make yourself like just think these things that obviously are not true.
If you can go back to the very beginning of this, how do you think this should have played out? Because I always question in my mind that when I go back, I look at what happened, I look at the initial stories with Nolan, and you guys knew him, right? I didn't know him. I know none of you guys. I just had a chance to meet you guys more recently. But how do you think this should have gone? If you could control the environment, Nolan is found deceased. How do you guys think that this should have been put out to the world?
So first off, I wish that none of this would ever happen. I wish Nolan could still be here with us today. And I wish that, like I said, none of this would ever happen. Like I wish that all this could be erased and Nolan could be here tomorrow. I mean, that's more than anything. But other than that, I feel like his mom blasting us on social media from the get-go, saying that he was out there with Warren and another guy. That's where it first started to take off. And then also the fact that she posted a picture of me and Morgan and another guy and Nolan on the boat together, blasting that out there, pushing this narrative, kind of, I guess. I wish that would have never happened either. And I don't think if those would have never happened, a lot of this stuff wouldn't have been as viral or gone all over the country at this point. I mean, this is a countrywide news story that is just blown out of proportion. And the fact that it was our best friend and it's not what people are saying it is what hurts the most. I mean, that was our brother. I mean, straight up. That's what I told his dad the night that he came over to my house. He was like, blah, blah, saying something. I was like, dude, that was my brother. Like, and you know that. He knows that. We were picking him up every single day. He never drove. I can't tell you how many times I pulled up in his driveway and picked him up. And it wasn't him asking. It was just because that's what we did. We just picked up Nolan all the time. That's how we, came about to all the stuff that we were going to. We'd go and pick him up. That's how much we like to be around him. We would do stuff like that all the time,
Well, first off, like I I wish we would have never, like, I think about this every day. Like, I wish we would have never went out on the 4th of July, because I know this wouldn't have happened. Nolan wouldn't be gone. And like, it's really hard to think about, because it's like, I wish I would have done this different, or I wish I would have done that different, because now one of my brothers wanted to be, like, passed away. But I think from the beginning, I'm glad that I called the Coast Guard, and I'm glad that we came together as a group. Even from the first day when people started texting us things, saying, you know, crazy things. But I wish it wouldn't have been reported as some type of race thing. I think it's really bad that, like, people are pushing the narrative, oh, this is a race thing. Well, obviously it's not. I mean, this is like a brother to us. I mean, Nolan's no different than anyone else in our group. And I just wish this wasn't pushed on the media as, oh, this is a bunch of white guys that killed a black guy, or this is, you know, like in the beginning it was like 4 guys went to a stranded island and dumped Nolan at the island and just left him there. Like, even from the beginning, it was just like this thing, and no one had facts, and they were just pushing this horrible narrative, all lies about everyone, and it's sick. So I wish that would have been completely different. I'm glad I called the Coast Guard. I'm glad I made the first contact within all of this. I'm glad I was the first one that called Christine Wells that night and told her that we haven't heard from her son. And I'm glad that I did all of that, but I hate the way this has been perceived by the media and portrayed. This has, like, been absolutely horrible with the way and the things that they've said to us and done. But other than that, I mean, there's not much I would change from my point of view and my friend's point of view. I think we did everything right, and I know we did nothing wrong.
I also want to say, I think it's so criminal that they took something so anti-racist and flipped it into something super racist. Like they took, this is the definition of anti-racism. I mean, that we did not look at Nolan any different than I looked at him, or even you. You know, this is literally our brother. I mean, like we stated, we did not treat him any different. We didn't treat Trayson any different. We don't treat Trayson any different. And they just flipped it. And I just think that is so wild that they're pushing this thing that they're saying, oh, they want to end racism and all this stuff. Well, they're the one pushing it. They're pushing the racism. And I just think that's kind of crazy.
Morgan, what's your thoughts on this? How does it affect you?
I mean, first I want to say wish this would have never happened. I wish Nolan would still be here with us today. And but in my opinion, I think that the media, they shouldn't have pushed a narrative from so early. I think that they should have let the local officials do their job, let them release statements, and then, I mean, the media is obviously going to see that and then do whatever they do. But that's what I mean. I trust the local officials.
Ed, with what has transpired, you know, how does that dictate your response? Because you have a 30,000 foot view of all of this stuff, right? You see the way that it could have went, and you see that there's people that instigated the narrative that's out there now. And as a, you know, defamation attorney, how does this navigate your tactics?
Sure,
you know?
and I want to be clear about something. Tonight, I'm not going to give any particular person any more oxygen than they may have already sucked up. But I will say this. What's been said about Morgan, Jax, and Warren, I'm not going to call them untruths or half-truths or falsehoods. I'm going to call it what it is, lies. So the first thing that's really important here is we're dealing with lies and liars. We're dealing with profiteers. We're dealing with hustlers. And one thing that I've seen since I got here is that Ocean Springs, Mississippi, is a really beautiful place. And the region is very beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful places in the country. And there is just no question. The death of Nolan Wells is a horrendous tragedy. But for the tragedy to then be magnified after his death for no reason other than profit is a disgrace, or what we would call a shanda. And I had the opportunity to go to Horn Island today with Tyler and Warren and Jax. And a lot of people who have been sucking up way more oxygen than they're entitled to have not been to the island. I'm willing to bet that a lot of the hustlers and profiteers and liars have not been to that island. And you have to go to that island. And being at the island today was revelatory. It was really illuminating. It's a very dynamic marine environment, first of all. But when you go to the island, you see instantly that what some people want to be true, what they wish to be true, they're trying to wish it to be true. They're trying to make it true through their lies. It's actually not possible. It is a very, very long and narrow barrier island. It's basically very low sand dunes. And in the particular part of the island that we're dealing with, there are no trees. There's hardly any foliage, hardly any tree cover, hardly any plants, and it's wide open. And on July 4th, there were thousands of people there. There is no possible way that anybody could have committed a murder in broad daylight on a barren, windswept island that is narrow and was just swamped with people that day in broad daylight. It's just not possible given the natural environment there. And that leads me to the next point, which is this. Once you know what the timeline is, when you combine the timeline with the actual dynamics of the island itself, all of the lies completely unravel because it isn't possible, and here's why. Morgan, Warren, and Jax left the island at about 4:30 p.m. That's it. They were gone. That is not open for debate. So that's a fact. They were gone. And at that time, Nolan Wells was still alive. Now, I'm not going to name them out of respect for their privacy, but just as one example, there are two very fine, upstanding members of the Ocean Springs community who saw Nolan Wells at about 10 minutes to 6 p.m. So about an hour and a half after these fine young men had left the island. They were gone, departed. Nolan Wells was alive. And these two witnesses, two very reliable, very credible, and very upstanding members of the community, they saw Nolan. And they've known Nolan for years. There's no chance that they made a mistake. And by the way, this can be corroborated through other evidence, other eyewitness accounts. And that's the end of it right there. And that's before we get into everything else about the situation.
And when I look at this, I feel like there's levels of defamation and areas of defamation. And I'm not going to speak on your behalf because this is y'all's story to tell, your story to litigate. But which areas are the most egregious that you are going to go after, or that you guys think also are areas where people have taken this situation and clearly lied to the public? One being the phone call. What is your thoughts on that phone call to Cito? Some people have gone out and done enhancements to the audio, and in doing that, created a transcript manually. It doesn't appear that the transcript was derived from an automated system or have any, in my opinion, real integrity with it. What are your thoughts first, you guys, on the audio, and then I'll get to you, Ed, on could that be a defamatory area the way it was produced? So what do you guys think about that audio?
Now that you have seen the interview in its rawest form, we need to start with the room itself. Because before you can weigh what was said, you have to understand what kind of event you were watching. On August 10th, in a room in Ocean Springs, Mississippi, 3 young men, Warren Hudson, Jax Patolo, and Morgan Seymour, sat down in front of a camera. Beside them sat two attorneys. The first was Tyler Cox, local counsel, an Ocean Springs lawyer. The second was Edward Pulsick, a defamation attorney from New York, known for representing Donald Trump in high-profile litigation, who had been on this case for a matter of days. Hold that detail. A criminal defense attorney answers charges. But there are no charges here. Nobody has been arrested. Nobody has been named a suspect by any law enforcement agency in Mississippi. A defamation attorney does not show up to answer a charge. He shows up to announce lawsuits. And that is exactly what happened. This was not a truth-seeking exercise. It was a media instrument. You can hear it in the architecture of the broadcast itself. Midway through the young men's testimony, while they were describing the fear they say they live with, the program cuts away to a prompt asking viewers to like, subscribe, and join the membership program. Then it cuts back to grief. Testimony interrupted by a subscribe button. That single edit tells you what the room was. Content. Pulsick framed his mission in his opening minutes. He said an injustice in one place is an injustice everywhere. He said he hates lying and cares about the truth. He called Warren, Jackson, and Morgan beautiful people, decent human beings, the finest young men that America has to offer. He borrowed a phrase from Tyler Cox, good Ocean Springs people, and repeated it like a refrain. That is not a legal argument. That is a character trailer. And then, having established that his clients are the finest that America has to offer, Pulsick did the thing he was actually retained to do. He leaned toward the camera and issued a warning to the entire internet. You just heard it. You heard the mob movie threat, and you heard the sound that followed it. But before we unpack that laugh, we need to sit with the other performance in the room, the one given by the young men themselves. Because before they could be defended, they had to be positioned, and the position they chose was fear. When asked what life has been like since July 4th, you heard the young men describe a world that has collapsed inward. They spoke of paranoia, of heads on a swivel, of fearing for their lives. None of this should be dismissed. Being recognized in a restaurant, shown a video of yourself, and told that strangers want to hurt you is a genuinely frightening experience. The restaurant confrontation they described, a woman returning with the first interview on her phone, asking, "Are you sure this isn't you?" while friends outside were allegedly told they would be killed, is the kind of encounter that leaves a mark. The internet has been ruthless in this case, and ruthlessness is not justice. But watch what the narrative does with that fear. Watch where it points. In 90 minutes, the young men centered, repeatedly, their own suffering. They described their paranoia, their swivel heads, their family's safety, the friend denied a Gatorade at a corner store. And then, when asked what they would change about that day, you heard Warren Hudson say something that independent investigators have not stopped replaying since. "I wish we would have never went out, 'cause I knew this. I know this wouldn't have happened." Listen to it twice. First, the slip. The sentence bends in midair. "I knew this," lands like a confession before it is corrected into, "I know this wouldn't have happened." Independent investigator Jay, who has tracked this case frame by frame, noted that her antennas buzzed at exactly that hinge. It is the sound of a speaker stepping to the edge of a sentence and stepping back. Second, the landing. "I think we did everything right. I know we did nothing wrong." Grief does not talk like that. When you lose someone you love in a way you cannot explain, the sentences that come out of your mouth are the opposite. "I should have waited. I should have looked back. I should have made him come with us." Guilt is the tax grief pays on love. But these young men, 6 weeks after losing a boy they called their brother, offered an audit with a clean balance sheet. "We did everything right. We did nothing wrong." And then, when the subject turned to why the public would not let the story go, you heard Jax Patolo reach for the shield the defense has been quietly holding all along. He claimed it was criminal that people took something anti-racist and flipped it into something racist, adding that they didn't look at Nolan any differently than they looked at the interviewer. Notice the frame. The scrutiny is not answered with timestamps, texts, or footage. It is reframed as an accusation of racism, and the young men are recast as its victims. Or even you, Jax adds, gesturing at the interviewer, a sentence that reveals how thin the frame is. Friendship is not a timeline. Loving Nolan is not a log of his final hours. And if you watched the attorneys during these passages, you saw the gears turning, the nods of agreement, the quiet confirmation, the race pivot, the Coast Guard raft, the good Ocean Springs people, refrain. These were not spontaneous emotions. These were bullet points, which brings us back to the man who wrote them. Let's return to the quote you heard in the opening clips, because it is the most revealing 30 seconds of the entire broadcast. Once you're in court, now you just can't leave. As Jay identified within hours of the interview airing, that is not legal language. It is a line from a mob movie, a film in which men beat strangers in a bar to send a message. For a licensed attorney, on camera, representing young men tied to an unexplained death, to close a warning with a cinematic threat is staggering. And the sound that followed it, the brief, synchronized chuckle from the group, was, in Jay's words, the mask slipping. A room discussing the death of an 18-year-old, laughing at the threat of a courtroom. But the deeper tell is not the quote. It is the mechanism. Real defamation does not work like this. A real cease and desist arrives quietly, in the mail, from a law firm, to a specific person, about a specific statement. It does not arrive as a televised ultimatum to an unnamed internet. When a lawyer warns a faceless public to retract now, he is not building a case. He is building a wall of fear, because a lawsuit you actually file can be lost. A lawsuit you only threaten can intimidate forever. Then listen to the precision of his language, because lawyers are precise on purpose. You heard him declare them categorically innocent, with a 0% chance of wrongdoing. 0%, no decimals. Beyond a reasonable doubt is not strong enough. No attorney who met his clients days earlier can offer that kind of certainty about facts he has not tested, unless the certainty is not about facts. It is about branding. He is not describing evidence, he is describing a product. And notice the names he wraps that certainty around. Morgan, Jax, Warren. Over and over, like a mantra, like a fence. If you lied about Morgan, if you lied about Jax, if you lied about Warren. The repetition is intentional. In lawyer speak, a named list is a circle, and a circle has an outside. The other passengers, the other boats, the fourth vessel nobody has explained, and, most glaringly, Warren's own brother, present that day, absent from every proclamation of innocence. An attorney who represents a group and protects only 3 names is not defending a group. He is drawing a line around the clients with clean hands and quietly telling you everyone else is outside it. A threat delivered on camera is not a legal strategy. It is a trailer, and the feature it is advertising is the claim we have to take apart last, because it is the only one that could actually end this case. On August 10th, you heard Edward Pulsick lay down a timeline and call it fact. The boat left Horn Island at approximately 4:30 p.m. That part is not in dispute. It has been consistent in every account the young men have given. Then he added the sentence that matters. He claimed 2 upstanding members of the community saw Nolan alive at 10 minutes to 6 p.m., and that this could be corroborated by other evidence. Understand what that claim does if it holds. 2 people who knew Nolan by sight, standing on Horn Island at 5:50 p.m., 90 minutes after the Triton was gone. If it is true, the 3 young men on that boat are mathematically clear. The window closes behind them. It would be the single most consequential piece of information released in this case since the body was found. So here is the problem. The witnesses were not named. No statement from either of them has been released. No affidavit. No account in their own words. The corroborating evidence Pulsick referenced was described, not produced. The claim was delivered on a YouTube channel by an attorney retained days earlier, in an interview that paused for a subscribe prompt. And there is a public record that sits awkwardly beside it. In the first week of July, Sheriff John Ledbetter issued a formal appeal. He asked the public for photographs and video from the northwest part of Horn Island on July 4th. He asked specifically for material depicting altercations. He asked for eyewitness accounts of any disturbances that day. A sheriff does not ask a holiday crowd for footage of fights unless he has reason to believe there may have been one. He was requesting, in Week 1, the exact category of evidence the defense unveiled in Week 6. That leaves two possibilities, and they are not equally comfortable. The first, the two witnesses came forward in July, gave their accounts to investigators, and their statements are sitting in a sealed file in Jackson County right now, waiting for a grand jury. In that case, the defense revealed nothing new. They merely described evidence the state already holds. The second, they did not come forward. An 18-year-old was missing. A sheriff publicly asked anyone who saw him to speak. 4 agencies searched for 2 days. A national story broke, and 2 people who knew Nolan by sight and watched him alive at 5:50 p.m. said nothing for 6 weeks, until a defamation attorney arrived and described them without naming them. Pulsick then reinforced the alibi with geography. You heard him describe the island as wide open, with no trees and no place to hide, arguing that no murder could happen in broad daylight. Taken on its own terms, the argument has force. Anyone who has seen the northwest end of Horn Island knows there is nowhere to hide on it. But notice what the argument answers. It answers the loudest theory on the internet, the version where 4 young men commit an act of violence in plain sight and abandon a body on a sandbar. That theory was never issued by an investigator. Not the sheriff, not the district attorney, not the coroner, not the family's legal team. What the family's team has raised is something narrower and considerably harder to answer with terrain. A red discoloration on the back of Nolan's head that no one has explained. A section of his neck and throat tissue that the independent pathologist was never able to examine. A cause of death and a manner of death that both came back undetermined. Toxicology that has not been released. An open island tells you where something could not have been concealed. It does not tell you how an 18-year-old ended up face down in the water. The water hides what the sand exposes, and that is where the 90 minutes kept walking past. Here is the final accounting. For 90 minutes, in front of a national audience, with 2 attorneys present and a camera running, the room had the power to end the speculation. All it had to do was answer the questions that actually exist. It answered none of them. Not one question about the sealed state autopsy, finished on July 7th, written, complete, and locked away while a family waits. Not one question about the independent autopsy's 2 words, undetermined, or about the throat and neck tissue that never reached the second examination table, the very tissue that could have separated a drowning from a strangling. Not one question about Nolan's phone, the device that holds his GPS, his messages, his final hours, which, as Pulsick himself confirmed on air, has never been turned over to investigators. If the phone proves Nolan was alive on that island at 5:50 p.m., handing it over ends the case today. Its absence is the loudest sentence in the entire record. Not one question about the sea tow call, placed to a private towing company while the boat was allegedly sinking, and the refusal of the Coast Guard in that moment. Not one question about why Warren's first call to Christine Wansley came at 11 p.m., 6.5 hours after the boat reached shore, from a zip code where her son's phone was already sitting.
But I can also tell you
Not one question about the grandfather who canceled the tow. Not one question about the 4th boat or who drove the Palm Beach.
At 6 p.m., still on the island.
The room gave us
We have
fear,
had multiple
a race
witnesses
pivot, a
reach out
mob
to
movie
us,
line, a laugh,
two
and a
confirmed
0%.
witnesses that
That is not a defense
Nolan
answering an
Wells on the
investigation.
island around
That is a defense
6 p.m.
answering an audience.
on
And the difference
July
between the
4th.
two is where the truth is hiding. Let's end where a human being actually lives. Nolan Wells did not drive. Think about what that means. Every ride he ever took was an act of trust. He stood at the edge of a driveway and believed a car would come. For 18 years, one did. The people in that car were his people. The habit of being picked up was the habit of being loved. On July 4th, he got on a boat with the same people who had picked him up 100 times, and when the boats left, he was the one thing on that island without a way home. His mother cooked with him the night before. His father worried about him. He was 3 weeks from 19. 6 weeks later, the people responsible for answering how he died have given his family a sealed report, an undetermined one, and a 90-minute interview about everyone else's fear. The absence of answers is not the same as the absence of truth. Cases like this do not close themselves. They close when people refuse to stop asking. So we ask, who were the 2 witnesses at 5:50? Where is the phone? Why is the autopsy sealed? And why, in 90 minutes, did no one ask those questions out loud? We will be here when the grand jury convenes. Most channels will not. After watching the 90 minutes, what stood out to you most? The "we did everything right" line, the mob movie threat, or the unnamed 550 witnesses? Drop your theory below. If you want coverage that respects the evidence and honors the families, subscribe to the Black Docket and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. And before you click away, do me a favor. Drop a comment below and tell us exactly where you are watching from today. We're building a global watchroom here, and I want to see how far this community reaches. Drop your city, state, or country below. Until next time, stay safe, and we'll keep watching.